the demon inside. "Ian!" my mom yells. I groan and roll out of bed. "Coming!" I yell back, throwing on a red t-shirt and jeans. I cross the hallway to brush my teeth before school. My black hair was disheveled, and my usually blue eyes were red. I observed them, wondering if it was a trick of the light, or maybe it was because I had just woken up. They stood out in my pale skin, and I wished I had colored contacts to try and hide the different color of my irises. I blink, rubbing my eyes and hoping my discolored eyes would fix themselves. Nothing changes, so I go downstairs and eat my breakfast quickly, running out to meet up with Billy while we walk to school. He waves at me, talking about his victory in Fortnite last night as we walk along the uneven sidewalk, and I half-heartedly listen. I keep my eyes trained on the ground, not wanting to alert him to my dilemma. "You know, you should look at people when they talk to you," he says absent-mindedly, and I glare at him as he passes me. He turns around and sees my eyes, and his widen. "Whoa, dude, cool contacts." "They're not contacts," I say, catching up to him easily. He doesn't say anything else about my eyes, instead yapping about his parents' divorce. He goes on and on and on about what they were going to agree to, and I mumble under my breath, I wonder why. "What?" "Nothing." We enter school and go to our classrooms after waiting around in the cafeteria for the bell to ring. All throughout the day, people made remarks about my red eyes. They stayed red for a month, and I wished people would shut up about them. It really wasn't a big deal. Billy became even more upset and gloomy, and his bubbly personality faded away with his parents' separation. "You good, bro?" I ask him one day as he pushes away his lunch. It was the second time he went an entire school day without eating, and I couldn't be sure he was eating at home. "Yeah," he pauses. "My dad died." "Oh, my mom shot him. A whole month ago." "You've been moping like this for forever now," I say. "Yeah, but..." "No buts, dude. Get over it, things happen," I yell. "Dude, my dad is dead." "I heard. I have depression, okay? It doesn't just go away. I've already attempted suicide 3 times. Hopefully you succeed next time." I spit, walking away. I go to the bathroom. My eyes were still red. I felt so hateful of everything ever since they changed colors. But there was nothing I could do about it. When the final bell rings for the day, I see Billy walking to the bridge. I quietly follow him, watching him as he props himself up on the railing. After a moment, he drops his backpack to the ground, staring at the still water calmly. I creep closer, and the closer I got, the more my view became like Billy's. Staring down at the water, my hands hanging over the railing. Memories flash through my mind, but they aren't mine. Dad getting shot, Mom getting arrested, a local family adopting me, Billy. The world tinted, becoming black and white, all color fading out. A voice chanted, "Jump, jump, jump, jump!" Billy climbs over the railing, but I feel my own body mimicking the actions, as if I were controlling him, or the other way around. My vision shifts to the water again, directly below me. The black water was waiting, inviting Billy. I take a deep breath and jump. I feel cold water slam into me, and then my vision turns back to where I had stood, having watched my best friend jump off the bridge. I run to the edge of the bridge, screaming at the black water, "No, Billy!" I sink against the railing and start sobbing, hugging my knees and muttering to myself. Cars drive by. One stops after a while of my sitting in the cold. A tall woman got out, and she squatted next to me. "What's wrong, honey?" she asks, her voice full of concern. "My friend just jumped." I stutter. "It's my fault. I made him do it." "I'm sure you didn't cause it. Not alone anyway. No, I was in him. I chose to jump. That doesn't make any sense, she says gently. Grab your bags, I'll take you home. I know not to get into a stranger's car, but when someone isn't a good person, you can tell. You can feel it. I grab my backpack, looking at Billy's before grabbing his too, and getting into the lady's car. What's your address? I tell her, and she starts the car. We ride in silence, and she walks me to the door, asking me to get my parents. I tell them someone wants to speak to them, going to my room and sitting on my bed. After a while, Dad bursts into my room, drunkenly. You brat! He roars, coming close and yanking me off the bed. Pack your bags. You're going to go live with your grandparents. You let your friend jump? I obey, and he drops me off at their house and speeds away. He doesn't even bother to make sure I get in okay, and I knock before letting myself in. Oh, it's just you, dear. Grandma smiles. I was coming to get the door. Did your parents come too? No. Dad said I have to live with you guys. My throat starts to close, and tears come to my eyes. He thinks I killed Billy. Billy had come over a few times. We'd spend the night with my grandparents and give them something to remember about us. Our youth, their youth. Grandpa said I reminded him of him and his friend when they were younger, and I had taken that to heart. A few weeks went by, and the people who had lived next door eventually moved out. The house was empty for about a month before a small family of 3 moved in. 2 parents and a pretty girl. I watched her from my window, hoping she didn't look up at me. She was talking with her mom, and they were grabbing bags out of their back seat. I wondered what they were talking about when suddenly she looked up at me. She was stunning, with long black hair and green eyes. Her bangs touched the bottom of her eyebrows, but she looked cute. I blushed, looking away and pretending I was watching the cat across the street hop onto the fence. Her attention shifted to what I was looking at before she spared another glance at me. She finished helping her mom, and they went into the house together. She came over later that day, while I was sitting with my feet in the pond Grandpa had built. She sat next to me, inviting herself. I didn't mind. I looked over at her, smiling. Hey, my voice cracked, and I felt a blush creeping back into my face. Hey, I saw you in the window. Not to be creepy, I'm sure you saw me. She grins. I smile. I noticed, but I wasn't staring at you. I promise. She smiles, looking away. So, what do you do for fun around here? Out in the country, there's like nothing to do. Honestly, I just moved in too. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed. I live with my grandparents now. I just moved in a few weeks ago. She nods, looking around at the expansive backyard, connecting to hers. This place is beautiful, though. I nod in agreement. So, do you go to school around here? I nod again. So then, would you be interested in showing me around? Town, school, everything. I want to get the full experience. No problem. I grin at her, and she grabs my arm. My heart jumps into my throat as she pulls out a Sharpie. She scrawls something on my arm, and when I turn to read it, I see a phone number. I could have gotten my phone. It's more cute this way. She smiles, cocking her head. Text me later. I feel a smile split my face as I nod stupidly. She waves goodbye, heading back to her house. I admire her, feeling stupid, feeling in love. She came over a week later, introducing herself as Mauricia, and we began to hang out more after school once I showed her around. She kissed me, and I kissed her back. After that, we became a couple. She got close with my grandparents, drinking coffee and laughing with them. She had been talking with my grandma about knitting, something they both had a passion for. I was surprised, but I let them go on about their day. Grandpa didn't know what was going on either, so we both sat listening intently to our soulmates talking about what they made. Mauricia was showing Grandma pictures of sweaters she'd made before showing her an animal she crocheted. Grandma complimented her, and I got up to use the bathroom. My eyes had flickered back and forth, becoming red every now and then, and going away. I had violent thoughts when they were red, but there was nothing I could do other than push them away. I sighed as I washed my hands, wishing my eyes would go back to normal. Dad hadn't tried to reach out. Mom hadn't either. When I returned to the living room, Mauricia excused herself, heading to the bathroom. Suddenly, my vision darkened, and I was looking at myself through Grandpa's eyes. I saw big events: graduation, their wedding, my dad being brought into the hospital room by a nurse. Suddenly, I saw through Grandma's eyes, seeing similar events as I grab a knife and begin stabbing Grandpa. His chest heaves as blood pools out, ruining his white button-up. Staring at the mess, I slit my throat, but it wasn't me. Grandma falls dead in front of me, and I scream, "Grandma, oh my gosh!" I kneel next to her body, blood gushing from the wound as Mauricia returns. She screams in horror, looking at me. "Did you do this?" "No!" I exclaim. My heart was pounding and she eyes the bodies. "Should we call an ambulance?" I shrug, refusing to touch the murder weapon, a butter knife. I don't know. My mind was racing as fast as my heart, and Mauricia takes a deep breath, calming herself faster than I was managing. Maybe we should hide them. Hide them? Bury them. They'll think we did it if we don't. I agree hesitantly. I witnessed a murder, sure, but that didn't mean I committed it. I stand up, finding trash bags and gloves. Mauricia and I managed to shove their frail bodies into the bags, dragging them behind us into the woods. I guess it came in handy that I was dating the nosy neighbor's daughter, so she didn't keep an eye on my house all the time. We walked deep into the woods until Mauricia told us to stop. The ground was soft beneath our feet, and my stomach felt like it. "Here, we dig." I begin to dig a hole, and she starts on one a few feet away. The bodies are in between us, and I don't know which bag held who. I was focused on the hole I had managed to dig. We were close to 6 feet by the time the sun began to set, and we tossed the bodies into the holes carelessly. I said a short prayer, not knowing what to say. We take our gloves and put them in a store bag before tying them to a rock and throwing it in the river even further in the woods. We begin the trek back, grabbing the shovels, and I carry them while Mauricia follows. Suddenly, she starts laughing, cackling even. I turn to face her, and she had her hands on her knees, bent over laughing. "Are you okay?" She nods, wiping tears from her eyes. She smiles at me, her canines sharpened into fangs, her pupil slits in her green eyes. I start to say her name, but she laughs even harder, stepping closer as if this were some joke. I really hoped it was. But she said, "You really thought I was human?" I did, but she probably already knew, hence why she was asking. She continued to creep closer, and I felt a chill pass from head to toe. Her mouth began to move, but her voice was in my head. "You can't do anything. I have the same powers." "Get out of my head!" I screamed, panicked. My heart was pounding, and I began to step backwards, watching the monster in front of me. I fall, but I quickly pick myself. No, I don't. Mauricia does. She forces me to walk forward, towards the river we were leaving. I try to plant me feet, but it just tears the soft earth up. I plunge in, feeling cold hands wrap around my neck gently, pushing my head down. I thrashed, trying to get out and only getting mouthfuls of water. I sputter and kick, but it's no use. I see me and Billy in daycare, the day we first met, and becoming friends. Then I see my grandparents killing themselves, the way I should have viewed it. Finally, everything goes black, and the cold hands release. Water runs through my ears and into my mouth and nostrils as I go limp, my body floating away. Creepy doll. It's all yours, Louis. The realtor hands me the keys to the house, looming in front of us. Thank you. I unlock the door, but he stops me. Before you head inside, I want to tell you a little something about this place. I nod, inviting him in, but he shakes his head. This house is old, he begins. I nod. I knew that. However, they probably haven't told you how old. It was built in late 1880, occupied in the early 1900s. A young couple, ready to settle down. They lived here for 26 years before Mom and Dad start fighting. They divorce, and Charlie wants his daughter who's devastated. She was 8 at this time, Amelia. The guy clears his throat. One night, Charlie breaks in and stabs Mom, repeatedly. Blood on the walls, the floor, the bed, the nightstand, everywhere. He turns to Amelia and begs for her to leave with him. She refused, so he shot her 3 times, one in the chest, one in the forehead, and one in her eye. They say he blew the eye clean out of its socket. My stomach churns, and I wish I had known this before purchasing the house. But this happened, almost 100 years ago. I personally think Amelia haunts this place. The guy smiles grimly. Every client who's moved in has reported the dolls moving. They come back, even when we clean the house and throw everything out. Amelia brings it back. She's got to. Apparently the dolls move at night on their own accord. If you become unhappy with your purchase, give me a call. I'll get you somewhere else, somewhere nice to stay. I thank him, watching as he leaves. The house was rustic and old, but I don't know about haunted. I guess I would find out tonight, but I'd probably be sleeping in the living room anyway. I sit on the old striped couch. Lots of the furniture was already here, and I liked how it gave the house a more welcoming look. It also honored the history of the family who lived here before me. And I mean, lived. Not spent a week, then decided to leave once again. The couch was striped, the wallpaper peeling, and the floor creaky and nasty, but I'd have plenty of time to clean the place up. I glance around the boxes, waiting to be unpacked, then decide to mess with that later. In the meantime, I'm going out for dinner, to Bob Evans. A tall blonde takes my order, asking if she could start with a drink. I order a sweet tea, watching her uniform hug her curves as she walks away. I scan the menu while she's gone, deciding on steak and a baked potato. She came back with my sweet tea, and I ordered. She brought my food out, and I caught her name tag, Clara. How pretty. I ate in silence, watching as she helped other people. The uniform looked good, and I had to quickly avert my eyes when she glanced over at me. Are we doing okay over here? She asks, stopping by my table. I nod, thanking her, and she's off again. Soon, I ask for the check, and she brings it to me, a number scrawled on the bottom. I smirk, putting it in my phone and paying before heading back home. I begin unpacking the small things, putting them away. I plug a small lamp in and begin unpacking living room decor. I put my pictures together, waiting to hang them until the wall was fixed. As I'm rummaging through the last of the box's contents, I hear footsteps upstairs. I stop, looking around. I go up the stairs, heading down the hall to what would have been Amelia's room. They said the house came furnished, so I didn't think anything of a child's room being fully furnished. The noise was coming from inside, and I put my hand on the knob, taking a deep breath. I opened the door to see a girl of about 8, with long, tangled black hair. Her skin was pale, and her lips were blood red, like that of a doll's. She pushed her hair back, revealing a gaping socket and another eye to stare at me. I looked down, seeing her ripped and tattered, white now yellow nightgown. I screamed, shutting the door and holding it closed. I heard a loud thump, like something hit the door, and I peered back in. The girl was gone, and everything looked to be in order. I took a deep breath, closing the door and going downstairs, where I'd be sleeping. In the morning, I went to get cleaning and repair supplies, ready to fix the house up to make it more comfortable. I walked into the cleaning aisle, holding my basket, and spot Clara looking at a disinfectant. "Oh, how convenient," I tease. She smiles, glancing at me. "Hey there, you doing a deep clean too?" She shakes her head. "What are you deep cleaning?" "That old house, where the girl died. I moved in and stuff." She frowns. "Huh?" She looked and sounded a bit angry. "But why? Everything okay?" I ask, smiling carefully. "Yeah. Do you know what happened in that house?" "Sadly. It's heartbreaking, isn't it?" "Yeah, I gotta go. I'll see you around. Or you can text me." I nod, watching her leave. I get my things, head to the checkout, pay, and begin the drive home. I spot a small antique shop on the road, and I pull over. It can't hurt to look, can it? I walk in, and the air conditioner must have been broken. I look around, spotting a small box near the counter, under glass. The man behind the counter could have been as old as some of the items in the shop, with white hair and withered skin. I nod to him, asking for the oakwood box. It looked fancy, with markings carved into the sides. The guy hands me the box and a key to go with it. It has my name engraved into it, as if it was meant to be. This box is said to be haunted. Everyone returns it. No refunds. He looks at me, a lazy eye's iris looking a milky white. "You don't have to worry about me." I smile, taking my new treasure and returning home. I sit on my couch, deciding to open the box. I twist the key and lift the lid. A doll looking just like the girl from last night staring at me. I shut the box, turning the key and tossing it away from me. I begin cleaning, working on the walls, and hanging my pictures up before mopping the floor in the living room and rearranging it to look how I'd feel comfortable with. When I finish with the living room, I can feel sweat formed all over my head and back. A knock on the door startles me out of my motivation, and I open the door to see Clara. "Hi," I smile. "Would you like to come in?" "Oh no, thank you. Too many bad memories." She smiles awkwardly. My confusion must have been clear because she quickly added, "I mean, I've heard stories. Horror stories. I don't want to add to the list." I nod. "I came by to see how you were doing." "Oh, pretty good, actually. Fixing the place up." "You sure you don't want to come inside? I'll give you a tour." She agrees, following me around and making weird comments that make me wonder if she's lived here. Lots of people have. If she moved, she shouldn't be ashamed. After last night, I can't say I blame her. When she leaves, I call the realtor. "Ready to leave?" "Not yet," I admit. "What was the mom's name of that family?" "Clara. Why?" "No reason, just curious." I smile, but I know he can't see it. "I'll talk to you later. I'm fixing this place up. Bye." I hang up and get back to work, knowing something was wrong. Very wrong. I wake early and resume my work, tiring around noon and asking Clara if she wanted to go to lunch. She asked to meet me at Wendy's and I agreed. I grabbed my wallet, driving over. We ordered, sitting at a booth with the tray between us, and I begin my interrogation. "Are you the woman who was stabbed in that house?" I ask, figuring just getting it out would be easier. "Clara, you've got memories and stuff, but no one's talking about the house anymore." I look at my burger, picking the tomato and onions off, before looking up to see an empty seat. Clara was gone, and there was no trace of her. I look around. Maybe she ran to the restroom, but her purse was gone too. Period? I turn back and see a little girl across from me, an eye missing. "Hi," she whispers, and my heart skips a beat. "Hi," I say, watching her closely. "Does anyone else see this?" "Clara went home," the little girl says, disappearing. I blink. Maybe I hallucinated. Maybe Clara wasn't even here yet. But her burger was bitten into, the vegetables on the table on her wrapper. I get up, heading home quickly. I had thrown away the rest of my lunch. Amelia stole my appetite. When I got there, I spotted Clara's car in the driveway. How'd she get here first? I walk into the house, seeing her sitting on the couch. She stared into space, but her eyes were wandering, looking around the room. She looked empty. I sat next to her, shaking her gently. She turned to me, her lips curling up into a smile. "Hey," she whispers, and the room drops 30 degrees. I hear footsteps, approaching, and Amelia appears. She comes and sits across from us on the recliner. She cocks her head, watching Clara and I. "Mom, I'm hungry." "I know," Clara looks at me. "Louis, this is my daughter Amelia." "But she's dead," I say, glancing at the girl with one eye. "She's dead, isn't she?" "No, she's not. She lives with me, right here." Clara points to her chest, to her heart, and soon she'll live there. She puts a cold finger on my heart, and I flinch. No need. I've got everything she needs. All you've got to do is accept us." I don't. "It's cold," Clara says, and I get up instinctively. I start a fire. It is cold. Once the flames are going, Clara and Amelia are both standing behind me. Amelia holds the oak wood box, and she hands it to me. I take it hesitantly, and they smile. Their mouths curve higher than they should, and I have to remind myself that they're both dead. Technically, unless this was all some joke. But who comes up with something so sick? Especially since Amelia's story was so tragic. They watch me for a moment longer before Clara sighs. "Go on, Louis, open it." I look down at the box, opening it, and seeing Amelia staring back at me. The box felt heavy, but I snapped it shut and tossed it into the fireplace. It could burn. The key could too. Clara sighs. "It was empty." She sounded pitiful. "It's my job to fill it." "Too late for that," I retort. "Now, get out, you demons." Clara just smiles, and my head starts to pound. Something begins choking me, but there are no hands around. Smoke. The room closes in, the walls getting too close, and smoke intoxicating me. I realize with horror that Clara would win. I'm the one in the box. Death's helper. The sound of "Happy Birthday" being played on the TV downstairs. I sit up, stretching and kicking the covers off. I smile at myself in the mirror, brushing my teeth before padding down the stairs. My pajama pants flowed freely around my ankles as I step into the kitchen. "Good morning, Mackenzie." Mom smiles at me as I sit at the table. I beam at my older sister and 2 little brothers. They didn't care it was my birthday, but I did. Stephanie grumbles a good morning. My 2 little brothers exclaim "Happy Birthday" excitedly, knowing there would be cake and ice cream later. Mom puts my breakfast in front of me, finishing up hers and Dad's and sitting down with us. I thank her for my breakfast and digging in. Can I go out with my friends later? I want to get a new perfume so Jeremy will notice me. Mom and Dad share a glance, a question unasked between them. I'm 13, time to start noticing. Sure, I'll take you out and get you some stuff later. We'll have a present for you when you get back home, though. I beam, finishing my food and heading outside to the car. Mom comes out shortly, climbing in and driving me to school. She waves as I walk into the school. Hey, Sarah exclaims, jumping excitedly as I approach the lockers. You're here! Happy birthday! I smile, hugging her before pulling away. I'm going shopping later, to get a new perfume so Jeremy notices me. Do you want to go? I could use your expert nose. Sarah grins. He wasn't at school, and that made me sad. How dare he skip on my birthday? Lisa wasn't there either, but it was okay. She was starting into her own little group, the nerds. That was almost forbidden, considering Sarah and I were both cheerleaders, and Lisa didn't even have school pride. What good was that? I came to terms with Jeremy's absence. I had Sarah, after all. After school, Mom picked us up and took us to the mall. Bath and Body Works was my favorite place when I needed a new signature smell. I wandered around, smelling things aimlessly and looking through the lotions. Everything smelled so pretty. Mom followed us, carrying a basket in case we needed more than a handful. Sarah oohed and ahed over a few, and I'd given them to Mom. What do you think Jeremy likes? I asked, pondering another perfume. The place smelt lovely, but eventually things began to run together and ruined the smell of. I don't know. Maybe he's a guy who doesn't really notice when people smell. Like anything, I mean. I shrug, putting the bottle down and looking at Mom. Mom, what smell do you think a guy my age would like? I don't really know. Mom looks around, picking up a random bottle and offering it to me. It smelt like heaven, a mixture of berries and cream with a hint of vanilla. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. I put the bottle in the basket, smiling. All done. We check out. Mom pays for everything, and we head back to the car. We drop Sarah off, and she waves before going inside with the small bag she had gotten. When I got home, Dad and Stephanie were giggling. I walked into the living room, a small dog running around in circles. Ah, he's so cute, I exclaim, and Stephanie glares at me. He's actually a she. Oh, my bad. I squat down to face the dog, and she runs over to me. She jumps on me, licking my face, and I laugh. She's well trained and knows a few tricks, Mom says. The pet store owner didn't name her. She wanted you to do so. Her previous owner called her Daisy, but she's probably forgotten that by now. I smile, rubbing my nose against hers. I actually like that. How about you, Daisy? She yaps happily, her tail wagging as she licks me some more. We're gonna be best friends. I giggle, and she seemed to be smiling at all of us. She was a small ankle biter, with white fur that was super thin, brittle almost. Her tail was just a stump. Apparently, it had been amputated while she was with her previous owner. She was in good health, and she was super energetic and playful as a 3-month-old puppy. I wondered why her previous owner had gotten rid of her, unless they were super old and couldn't take care of Daisy like I could. I got my answer a few months later. Daisy got horribly sick, barking, throwing up, pooping everywhere. Her claws were growing quickly, and she moped around. She quit eating and drinking, and I began to get worried. Mom and I took her to the vet, and the doctor frowned at us. We had been sitting in the waiting room for over an hour, and I had been texting Sarah about the dog and Jeremy. He had started to notice me, and he asked for my snap. It was super exciting, and I was glad he could see my stories. Right now, we were focused on Daisy. "You don't think she's dying, do you?" she asks. "No, I hope not. I just got her. She's not even a year old. I know it's so stupid. I'm worried for her. I am too girl, I'll pray for you." "Thanks, but I don't think that'll get us anywhere. No harm in trying." I smile, putting my phone away when the vet approaches us. "You are the owner of Daisy, correct?" We nod. "We can't find anything wrong with her. Nothing's in her bloodstream, or her brain, or her fecal matter. Everything looks the way it should. She's been feeling lethargic and not eating, though, which throws us off. Sick dogs don't eat, but she's not sick." Mom nods, squeezing my hand. "Is there anything we can do?" "Try a different food," the vet says. "But take this medicine too, and give it to her twice a day. It'll ease the symptoms and hopefully make her feel better. She doesn't look like she's in any pain, so that's a good thing." "Right." Mom agrees, and we're given Daisy to take home. I hoped changing the food and giving her medicine would help. I would hate to have to put her down. I tried to bribe Daisy with food, but she continued to refuse, no matter what kind it was. She grew weaker, frail, and sick. One day, I was rattling her food, and she trotted over and clamped down on my wrist. "Ow!" I yank my arm away, and she just stares at me with sad eyes. "I'm sorry, girl. You look miserable." Mom came in, seeing my hand, and her mouth drops open. Blood was gushing out of the room, but Daisy hadn't bitten me that hard, had she? Mom took me to the bathroom, cleaning the wound and bandaging it, saying she hoped it wouldn't get infected. A few weeks later, I had caught something at school. Some disease had my coughing up blood and phlegm, and Mom kept me home and quarantined. She would bring me lunch, keeping Daisy away. I later found out they had taken Daisy back. Turns out she was an infected lab rat, and I only had a few weeks left to live. The disease had spread through my bloodstream, starting to weaken and shut down my organs and blood flow. I could barely feel my heartbeat anymore. My skin was changing color, and my breath came rarely. Mom cried, apologizing for not seeing the signs sooner. The whiskers had been cut. The mutation of the lab changed its look, and the tail stump had all been things she had overlooked. She cried with me, and that was the last time I saw my mom. "We're gathered here today to honor Mackenzie Johnson." The guy paused, not really knowing what to say. Stephanie took the stage, giving a speech about me. "I have always admired my little sister. She wanted to be a fashion designer, and she had big dreams for the future. She knew what she wanted, while some of us don't know till we get there. I regret not being there a whole lot for her. She needed me the most, and I let her down. It should be me watching out for her, but she took one for the team, and will be protecting me, I guess." I watch from the back row, having arrived late. I'm surprised Mom didn't yell at me. It's a funeral. I followed the line to view the body, but no one said anything to me. I couldn't ask what was going on. I'd look rude. Mom was in tears, and when I got to the casket, I saw my body, looking peaceful. Wait. Suddenly the world darkens, and the Grim Reaper appears in front of me. He beckons for me to come, and I follow him into a dark, eerie place. Souls float aimlessly, staring at nothing, and the Reaper turns to me. "You've lived a good life," he hums. I shrug. "I don't know, I tried. I feel like I was such a bitch throughout my life, but I don't know. I'll be back." Only, he disappeared to not come back. Years passed, my soul wandering among the other lost souls. They were blue-hued, and moans escaped their permanently open lips. They were like zombies, but creepier. I sat waiting. I floated waiting, I wandered, waiting. I could see my family. They were getting along just fine without me, and I felt a pang of jealousy. Did they forget me? After 4 years, time moves slow in this place. The Reaper returned. He beckoned for me once again, and I obeyed. I was 17, but on Earth, I was still a little girl. You've earned a spot to guide the other souls to the realm they belong in, he says, pointing at a few of the people. This is the Soul Cavern, and you will take these lovely people and give them the rest they deserve. What do you mean? You're going to lead them from this place to whatever they believe in. If they believe in nothing, they stay here. Here. He hands me a book. I've kept track. I skim the pages, but my name isn't there. Where's my happy ending? You're my helper until I release you from your duty. I sigh, wishing I could do anything else. I do his job. At least I feel like it should be the Reaper's job. Life on Earth continues without me. Stephanie gets married and has kids. My little brothers become pilots, and life goes on. After almost 100 years, I feel myself fading away. I look at my hands, and they're turning to dust. I scream running, but nothing is working. I feel as if my head is all by itself, and the Reaper appears, chuckling. They've forgotten you, so you have died again. You are finally mine. I die for the second time around, ceasing to exist, church at the devil's hour. I can't help but think this is a bad idea as I pull my dress on for church. It was currently 1 a.m., but I couldn't understand why we were going so early. Services would go through until around 6, something that was odd for our usually happy-going, God-worshipping church. We always held our services from 9 to whenever. Sometimes it was 11 others. It was 1 in the afternoon. I brushed my hair, putting on a light layer of makeup before heading downstairs for breakfast. I enter the bathroom, fixing my hair barrette and catching a glimpse of something moving in the corner. My breath catches in my throat, and I watch the apparition fade in and out before disappearing entirely. I go back to the table, taking my seat as Mom puts a plate in front of me. Tension charged the room, built from fear. Fear of what would happen, of what was happening, of what might not happen. Mom was silent as she sat down to eat. Dad would usually be ready to go. He always attended church, but he wasn't here. Where's Dad? He's not coming, she said quietly, picking through her food. We still had until 2:30. Why? He doesn't want to. Silence fills the room. Not coming is a sin in our Father's eyes. We're supposed to worship the Christian God, but sometimes I feel like my church worships something else. Something sinister. I couldn't explain why, but the fact that we were about to go praise our Lord at the crack of dawn gave me the creeps. Also, we weren't allowed to miss. We had to be there for every service the church held, no matter the time. I sigh, picking through my food too. Mom, are we in a cult? She shakes her head, but it feels like a lie. The other members sometimes wear long, flowing robes, so what else am I supposed to think? I don't believe her, but I didn't feel like arguing, so I continued eating. When we finished, Mom put everything away and we got in the car. I got to sit in Dad's seat, the front, but it was weird without him. We shouldn't go without him. Something could happen. You sure Dad isn't coming? Mom nods, starting the car. He made his choice. I nod, fumbling with the stuck seatbelt, but Mom stops me. Don't bother. Far worse is bound to happen. It was an ominous warning, and I let the belt slide back into the holder, and I watch out the window as we drive. The streets were dead. Lights were off. People were asleep like they should be. The only cars on the road were the ones going to this function. When we get to the church, all of the other members were there. They were wearing long robes, stained the color of blood. Their hoods were up, shrouding their faces, and they had their hands clasped together through their sleeves. Why should I believe this isn't a cult? Mom accepts her robe, turning to me and whispering that she had to go change. I wait on one of the pews for her, watching the clock on the wall and wishing the service would just start so I can leave sooner. Mom comes out with her robe on, her hood up, and her hands concealed. Chills run down my spine as I realize something was wrong. This isn't how service was supposed to go. The leader, priest, walks to the front of the church, looking out at us from under his hood. I see Jeremiah Lingham isn't here. Shame. We'll have to start the ceremony without him. Everyone murmurs things about my dad, and I feel small compared to everyone, as if they're all giants, and I was the size of an ant. Now, everyone, please help move the pews to the sides of the church. I place my small purse down, helping the others push the pews against the walls. When that was done, everyone gathered around in a circle. I tried to fit into the circle, but the leader chuckled softly. "We have something special for you to do, dear." I turned to face him. He was a striking young man, and he removed his hood and looked at me condescendingly. "I need you to stand in the middle." I do as I'm told, watching as he steps back into place, holding the hands of the people next to him after putting his hood back up. Everyone else grabs each other's hands and begins chanting, something low and inaudible. They get louder, chanting, "Satan, we welcome you into our church. We welcome you to take back your rightful place on the throne." My heart beats faster. This isn't what church was about. We learn about how evil Satan is. "We offer you this foolish girl to harvest. You may use her for whatever you need. Let her blood spill from her mouth if you accept our offer. We ask of you not to kill her, thus making her useless, but you may use her to walk the earth once more. For your chance was cut too soon by the Almighty Lord, and we beg of you to try again with more support behind you. Satan, we declare you as our Savior, and we welcome you into our church." Something catches in my throat. They were still chanting as I throw up blood. I fall to my knees, coughing, the taste of blood and vomit on my tongue. The clock chimes 3 times, signaling 3 a.m. I stare in horror as the candles blow out, leaving us in total darkness. A candle is lit, Father Zane's face illuminated partially. "We welcome you, our dear friend." He blows the candle out again, and the lights of the church come on, as if we'd been busted by the police or something. The front doors bust open, and swirling clouds of black smoke fly in, roaming the room and circling a few of the chandeliers, before landing and solidifying into anthropomorphic creatures. My heart sinks as I realize they're demons. I helped this cult summon Satan himself. I clutch my small purse, pulling out the small Bible I carried with me, but Zane snatched it, opening it. "I love how easy girls like you are to fool." He smirks, and I feel sudden hatred for him. I'd always liked Father Zane, but now I can see he'd been using the Lord's name and temple in vain. Mom passes me the keys, giving me her purse and mine back. "Zane, let her go." "I can't. She's our vessel." The word brings goosebumps to my skin, and I look at Mom horrified. "You brought me here to be sacrificed?" "No, nothing like that. I wanted to help them, and they needed something like you. Please, Zane, she has to tell Jeremiah I love him. He'll know. He'd know already if he had come." I guess it's what he gets for disrespecting our Lord. He pulls out a knife and plunges it through Mom's stomach. I scream, reaching out as if I could stop the bleeding and help her live. Zane, how could you? Things have to happen this way, my sweet Jessie. I glare at him. I hated him calling me that. I always have. But I have to let him win. What do I have to do? Nothing much anymore. Zane smiles, his teeth gleaming. Tend to your mother. I'll figure everything else out. Not like you're any help anyway. I kneel next to Mom, tears in my eyes as I stare at the gaping hole in her stomach. I don't know first aid, and the people around me were clearly all on the same side. Mrs. Lingham had to die, but why? I wished I could call Dad. Maybe I should have taken Mom's advice and gotten out of here. I could probably take the keys and drive home, but I'm only 14. I can't legally drive. Who's on the road at this hour, though? Police would be more worried about these people defacing the Lord's temple than a teenager trying to flee helplessly. But what would you tell them? I was about to be some sacrifice, no, some vessel that they were going to hold Satan in, so he could walk the earth again? That's exactly what I'd say. I could tell them they tried to sacrifice me, attempted murder. It would work out and they would all get arrested. Zane would for sure, since he actually did murder Mom. I stand up, looking around for a phone. No phones were allowed in our church, but I figured maybe a landline would be around. How else could they reach new people if they didn't call to spread the word? I look back down at Mom, pain building in my chest. I had to get home. Dad needed to know what happened, if he was still alive. I know there were punishments for those who shirk their duties. I sigh, but I was blown away from Mom's body and thrown outside. I felt bones break as I slammed into a car and sunk to the ground, moaning in pain. I groan, my vision hazy, as I glance up to see Satan standing above me. I reach for my Bible. Maybe it wasn't mine, but it was the Lord's word, so hopefully it'd protect me. I mutter silent prayers as I strain for the Bible. Satan notices and he laughs, an odd sound for something so horrendous. Reaching for something, he kicks it away, his skin burning as the book burns his foot. He didn't react. Ah, poor soul, you're my vessel? You look weak. I glare at him, determined to prove him wrong. As the sun rose, so did smoke and gray clouds. The sun was soon clouded over, and cars began to pass by. It seemed like no one noticed what was going on at the church. No one stopped, and police never came. Satan was still taunting me, and my vision was fading in and out. I didn't know if I'd make it, but I was determined to make sure Dad knew I loved him. Satan wanders away, and he looks back at me, Zane with him. Good work, but I'm afraid she won't work. I need someone stronger, smarter, bigger, older. Someone more like you. Zane raises an eyebrow, clearly surprised at the request. I start crawling towards my Bible. Neither of them were paying me any attention. Zane began to argue with Satan, giving him reasons why he wouldn't work as the host. I'm too old. I'm not that strong. I'm the cult leader, etc. But he was losing his people. The demons were slaughtering the church and painting the walls with blood. I could see through the large double doors that had been left open since I had flown through them. My Bible was muddy by the time I reached it, and my fingers grasped it. I clutched it close to me, rolling over on my back as the sky darkened. The whole world was darkening, and I began praying. I couldn't go out with Satan. I would go out by him, but I would see my Lord. I was a devout Christian. I closed my eyes, praying that the Lord will tell Dad how much I loved him. Then it was all over, and I went limp. The substitute. Anne awoke with a start. her alarm buzzing loudly. Why can't it be any quieter? She slides out of bed and walks numbly to her closet. She pulls out her school uniform, a navy blue skirt and button-up with a matching blazer, and puts it on. She puts on the red tie that matched and pulls on the knee-high leather boots the girls were issued. She wanders to her vanity, where the cracked mirror reflected different angles of her, and none were reliable. She brushes her hair and yawns on the way downstairs. She skips breakfast again today and boards the bus to school. She sits in the back, and someone later joins her in the seat. She stares out the window the entire ride, and the bus later arrives at the school, where everyone files off and bottlenecks their way into the building. Anne clutches her bag and walks into the school. She's nervous for her first day. She had never been to a public school quite like this. The formality made it feel like a private school. When she enters the classroom, she sees a corpse sitting on the chair for the teacher. The lesson was written on the board, and papers were stacked on the teacher's desk. There were single sheets on every student desk, but Anne saw they were graded work from the previous day. She walks to the teacher's desk and cautiously takes today's paper. Then she walks to a desk without a paper and sits down. Keeping her eyes to herself, she begins the assignment. She glances at the board and spots notes written in chalk. She pulls out a notebook and copies them down, struggling to read the handwriting. It was as if the hand shook violently while writing, some lines blurring into one another. Anne returns to her paper and completes it quickly. She places it in a folder, folds her hands, and watches the dozing corpse. It sometimes appeared to be breathing, but Anne knew better. There were no flies circling the corpse. The classroom didn't smell. The other students didn't seem to be bothered by the absent teacher. Did the principal know about it? Did they care? Anne was still new to the school, having transferred mid-year, so she was confused. Maybe she should ask around. She glances at the clock, squinting at the tiny numbers. 20 minutes until the bell, where she will be excused to go home. Anne pulls out her paper and looks over the answers, especially for math. She isn't used to having one teacher teach every subject. Her old school had class switches. This school didn't have a lunch period either. They ate lunch in silence in the classroom. The other students kept to themselves, their skin pale or gray in comparison to Anne's. She continued to glance at the clock until it was time to put her things away. Anne sighed as she put away her papers. The bell rang, and students scuffled and scooted their way out of the classroom. No one talked, and the classroom quieted eerily. Anne stands up, following the students as they drop off their papers into a mailbox in the hallway. Lots of teachers had mailboxes attached to the wall next to their doors, and Anne stuffed her homework into it. She wanders down the halls and stops in the bathroom, where the mirror had been ripped from the wall. She stared at the spot it was supposed to be, regretting entering the room. She heard girls gossiping and giggling, but didn't see them. She washed her hands awkwardly, having had no reason to enter the restroom, and went to the bus stop. She was going to stop at the local cafe on the way home. The bus arrives, and she climbs on. She wanders to the back. No one even spares a glance at her. She sits quietly, watching out the window. Halfway through, someone sits next to her. They glance at her, in confusion before getting up and sitting somewhere else. When they reach the cafe, she climbs off. She nods goodbye to the bus driver and enters the cafe. Ordering a cappuccino and sitting in a window seat, Anne watches people mill about outside, oblivious to her presence, it seemed. She finishes her drink, leaves a tip for the waitress, and walks home. The sky began to darken, and Anne held her notebook to her chest as the clouds opened up and began to rain. She finally makes it to her street, passing some people who had umbrellas. No one looked at her. She even bumped into someone. She reaches her house, heading up the driveway and opening the door. When she enters her house, she turns the lights on and walks upstairs. She lives alone in a small house. Her parents were nowhere to be found, although she figured they still lived together, since this was her parents' house and nobody had moved out. Anne sits on the bed and sighs, staring at the walls. She lays down and falls asleep. She didn't have the energy to shower for school tomorrow, the second night this happened. She was also nervous for her next day of school. The next day was the same as the first. When Anne arrived, she saw the corpse of the teacher, and the papers were the same as yesterday, except the ones on the students' desks were yesterday's work. Everything was graded. This was a routine for this classroom. Anne grabs a paper from the teacher's desk and sits at hers. Seeing her work got an A+. She smiles and tucks it neatly into the folder. She works on today's work, and the routine is the same as yesterday. Something she would have to get used to. When the bell rings, Anne follows the students again, washes her hands in the bathroom after hoping to catch someone in the bathroom, and catches the bus. This soon becomes her daily routine, and there was still no signs of her parents. A few weeks after this new routine, she returns home and sees the lights on and the door is unlocked. She had begun to doubt her parents were even coming back, but she allowed herself to feel a hint of hope as she approached the door. She cautiously opens it and enters the kitchen. She quit eating once her parents left. She quit feeling hunger. She sees her parents making something, tacos, it seems. The smell fills the room, but it doesn't cause the reaction it used to. None of them seemed excited. It was like the tacos were habit. She pulls out a chair and watches her mom in fascination, her mom unaware of her presence. Her parents have the tacos nearly finished before they finally notice each other. "Sweetie?" Her mom smiles, but it didn't look right. Her teeth were moldy looking and yellowed, decaying almost. Anne returned the smile, hoping hers didn't look so rotten. She forcefully scoots her chair away and stands up, backing away slowly to her room. Her mother's once beautiful face had been terrifying, with missing eyes and cracked skin. Her skin had been pale, and the eye sockets were sunken, and she hoped it was a hallucination. She couldn't bear to think about what her father looked like. Was he similar? Did he know? Did her mom know what she looked like? What did she look like? Anne looks in the mirror, wishing the cracks weren't there. She hadn't seen herself in a long time, and she could only hope she was as pretty as her mom told her she was. She sighs, sinking onto her bed, and cries as her mother calls, "Sweetie." Anne sobs as her mother continues calling her. She didn't want to go see her mom anymore. She wished the creature would return to wherever it came from. "Anne," her mom called again, and Anne hugged herself. She was cold. She was always cold. But she knew that wasn't her mother. That was a monster posing. Anne heard footsteps and creaking floorboards as her mother climbed the stairs, continuing to call for her. Anne stares at the door blankly, the sound of the footsteps coming closer as the monster crept up the stairs. Where was her dad? She waited a few more moments before deciding to do something. She crosses to the room, locking her door and listening for her mother. A moment later, a knock on the door scares her. The doorknob jiggles as her mom sighs. "Sweetie, please come out. I've got dinner for us, just like we used to." Anne waited, staring at the doorknob thoughtfully. If she could keep her mom out, she could probably escape out the window. "Sweetie, you can't judge. You're just as hideous. It happens, and it's normal." Anne begins to cry again, and she sinks against her door. Did her mother really just say she was hideous? Isn't that against the rules? Moms weren't supposed to say things like that. "Open up, let's eat," her mother calls, retreating, and Anne's sobs get louder. She wasn't going to go down there. Her father hadn't looked at her, and maybe that was a good thing. It would have haunted her dreams, just as her mother would. Realization dawns on Anne slowly. Her mother is dead, which means her father probably is too. And if she was hideous, doesn't that mean she's probably dead as well? She looked at her hands. They shook, but her skin matched the white of her parents'. Maybe she was dead, and maybe she didn't have the right to judge. Nonetheless, she pulls her desk chair over and locks her door, barricading herself in as her mom continued to beg her to come out. When Anne wakes the next morning, she goes through the window to catch the bus. She didn't want to face the creatures she called her parents. She sighs as she takes her paper and sits at her desk. After she finishes her paper, she glances around the classroom. She stifled a scream as she saw half-decayed beings slouched in their seats, working. She looked up to the desk and noticed the chair was empty. What was this place? She looked around, no sign of flies, and there was no smell. But everyone looked like they were rotting. The corpse that had always occupied the chair walked in, yawning. Its jaw unhooked as its mouth opened wider and hit the floor. It bent over, picking it up and trying to click it back into place. Anne screamed in horror, and the whole class turned to look at her. They glanced at each other and began laughing. Anne felt awkward at first. A blush crept into her cheeks. Then she felt angry. She glared at them, watching as their heads tilted back, and a hoarse laughter filled the room. Even the teacher chuckled. "Is everything okay?" a girl asks, though she was laughing too. Anne glares at her. "Are you guys not scared? A dead man just walked into the classroom. You're all dead." A boy turns to his friend, a smirk playing on his gray face. "You're dead too." He turns to Anne finally. "Your left eye is missing, and you have marks all over your body. You look like you've been in a car crash. Aren't you the girl who died with her parents in that car?" Anne resists the urge to throw up. How long has she been dead? What crash? How come she couldn't remember? Is that why her parents looked the way they did? She stares at the class in shock, then runs to the bathroom, wishing there would be a mirror so she could see. A mirror was installed over the weekend, and a ghastly reflection stared back at her hauntingly. She screams in horror as she sees marks all over her neck and arms. Her left eye was gone, and skin was hanging from her body in some places. She brushed her hair every day, but now she saw it was useless. It was now wispy, and chunks were missing. Blood had dried up around her nose and mouth, and her neck was reddish-brown. She sinks to her knees, sobbing as she realizes she's dead. She's been dead this whole time. That's why her parents transferred her to this school. The girl from the classroom came into the bathroom and placed a hand on Anne's shoulder. The two stared at the decaying body in the mirror, going by the name of Anne together, and Anne cried even harder.